Lions kill with their jaws. Tigers kill with their claws. Wolves bring down prey through pack coordination and endurance. Every apex predator in history has followed some variation of the same basic playbook: bite, slash, chase, repeat. Except one. In Pleistocene Australia, there was a creature they called a lion that threw out the rulebook entirely. It didn't strangle its prey, it didn't chase anything down, it dropped from the shadows and killed with something no other predator in Earth's history has ever used as a primary weapon: its thumbs. And pound for pound, nothing with fur has ever bitten harder. Not before, not since. Not even close. Step back 2 million years. The continent of Sahul, what we now call Australia, New Guinea, and Tasmania, sits isolated in the Southern Ocean, cut off from the rest of the world by thousands of miles of open water. No land bridges, no gene flow. Just an evolutionary laboratory running experiments that would be impossible anywhere else on Earth. The landscape is changing. Ancient Gondwanan rainforests are retreating, replaced by open woodlands, eucalyptus scrub, and vast stretches of dry chenopod shrubland. It's not quite jungle, not quite savanna, something in between. Scattered trees, rocky outcrops, and plenty of places to hide. This is the kingdom of Thylacoleo carnifex, the marsupial lion, the pouched butcher. But here's where the story gets strange. Calling this thing a lion is a dangerous mistake. It wasn't a cat. It wasn't even from a carnivore lineage. Thylacoleo belonged to the order Diprotodontia, the same group that includes koalas, wombats, and kangaroos. Something had forced a family of gentle leaf eaters to become killers, and they became very, very good at it. If you had to describe Thylacoleo to someone who'd never seen it, you'd sound like you were making things up. At 101 to 130 kilograms, that's 220 to 287 pounds, it weighed about as much as a female African lion. The largest specimens pushed 160 kilograms, or 350 pounds, into male leopard territory. But the comparison ends at the scale. Standing just 75 centimeters at the shoulder, about 2.5 feet, roughly waist-high on an adult human, and stretching 150 centimeters from nose to tail tip, Thylacoleo was built nothing like a cat. It was lower, denser, more compact. Picture a creature with the shortened head of a lion, the thick body of a bear, the powerful rotating arms of a climbing primate, and the rigid, muscular tail of a kangaroo. This wasn't an animal designed for the chase. The lumbar spine was stiff, lacking the flexible whip that lets cheetahs explode into a sprint. The center of gravity sat low to the ground. Everything about this body plan screamed one word: grappler. The skull tells you the rest. Short and wide, what anatomists call brachycephalic, with cheekbones flared out like flying buttresses. A ridge of bone called the sagittal crest ran along the top, providing anchor points for jaw muscles that would make a pit bull look underpowered. But the real engineering marvel wasn't the chassis. It was the weapon systems. In 2005, a study by Stephen Rowe and his colleagues did something that rewrote the textbooks on the mammalian predators. Using 3D skull models and finite element analysis, the same engineering software used to stress test bridges and aircraft, they calculated the bite force of Thylacoleo carnifex. The results were staggering. Scientists used something called the bite force quotient, or BFQ, to compare bite strength across different sized animals. It adjusts for body mass, giving you a pound-for-pound measurement. The African lion scores around 112. The spotted hyena, famous for crushing bones, comes in at 117. The Tasmanian devil, the strongest jawed marsupial alive today, hits 181. Thylacoleo carnifex? Over 190. The highest of any mammal ever recorded. Not by a small margin, by a gap that makes everything else look ordinary. A 101-kilogram Thylacoleo could generate bite force equivalent to a male lion nearly twice its size. The physics are brutal but elegant. That short skull reduced the lever arm working against the jaw muscles, while those expanded attachment points maximize the force they could deliver. It's the same principle that makes bolt cutters work. Short handles, massive mechanical advantage. And that's essentially what this skull was, a biological bolt cutter wrapped in fur and muscle. When those jaws closed on something, they didn't squeeze and hold like a lion suffocating prey. They sheared. So Thylacoleo had the strongest bite-to-body weight ratio in the mammalian history. Great, but here's where things get truly unsettling. Because the teeth inside that skull weren't what you'd expect from any predator. Look at the skull of any apex predator you can name. Lions, wolves, bears, they all have one thing in common: prominent canine fangs. Those long, conical teeth designed to puncture and grip. Thylacoleo had none. Where canines should be, there's just nothing. Instead, the front of the mouth is dominated by massive incisors, huge front teeth that jut forward like a rodent's. Except these are razor sharp and built for piercing flesh. But the real weapons sit further back. The third premolars on both upper and lower jaws have transformed into something unprecedented. Enormous, blade-like structures that run nearly the entire length of the tooth row. When the mouth closes, these blades slide past each other with surgical precision. Not like a dog's teeth, not like a cat's. Like scissors. Like industrial shears. Like pruning secateurs designed to cut through branches. Except these were designed to cut through muscle, tendon, and windpipe. One bite. Throat severed. Done. But here's the thing about Thylacoleo that separates it from every other predator that has ever lived. The bite wasn't even the primary weapon. That honor belongs to the thumbs. Thylacoleo inherited semi-opposable thumbs from its tree-climbing ancestors, and on each thumb sat a massive curved claw, retractable like a cat's, but positioned on completely the wrong digit. This wasn't some vestigial climbing adaptation. Analysis of the forearm bones shows these animals could rotate their wrists and extend their arms with enormous force. These thumb claws were killing tools, designed to anchor into prey, to pin struggling victims, possibly to disembowel. No other predator in Earth's history has ever weaponized a thumb. So to recap, the strongest bite-to-body weight ratio in mammal history, teeth that work like industrial shears, and retractable murder thumbs. Not great news if you were literally anything else trying to survive in Pleistocene Australia. Thylacoleo couldn't run down prey across open ground. The rigid spine and compact legs weren't built for sustained pursuit. But they weren't built for that job. This was an ambush predator. And the climbing adaptations weren't leftovers from some distant arboreal ancestor. They were tactical equipment. The drop bear jokes Australians tell tourists, they might have very old, very real roots. Picture the kill sequence. Thylacoleo waits, in a tree, on a rocky outcrop, in dense scrub cover. A Diprotodon wanders past. That's a 2.8-ton wombat relative, roughly the size of a small elephant, the largest marsupial that ever lived. Or maybe it's a Procoptodon, a giant short-faced kangaroo standing 3 meters tall. The attack comes from above, or from close ambush. Those massive thumb claws drive into the prey's hide, anchor points established. The rigid tail, confirmed by complete skeletons discovered in Nullibor's Flight Star Cave in 2002, braces against the ground or the prey itself like a tripod's third leg. The animal doesn't get thrown off no matter how much its victim thrashes. Then the bite. Those shearing premolars find the throat. Windpipe, carotid artery, spinal cord, any of them will do. The whole process takes seconds, not the long, suffocating minutes of a lion kill. The evidence supports this nightmare. Naracoorte caves in South Australia preserve thousands of claw marks on limestone walls, scratch patterns matching Thylacoleo claws from both adults and juveniles. They lived in these caves, raised young there, climbed in and out of vertical shafts. And then there's the rock art. Aboriginal paintings in the Kimberley region show a striped creature with massive claws attacking human figures. The dates overlap with Thylacoleo's existence. Humans saw this thing, and they remembered. Richard Owen named it in 1859. Thylacoleo, pouch lion. Carnifex, butcher. For over 150 years, scientists classified it as Australia's answer to the big cats, a case of convergent evolution, a marsupial filling the large predator niche that placental mammals occupied everywhere else. They assumed it must be related to other marsupial carnivores, the Tasmanian devil, the thylacine, something in the meat-eating business. They were wrong. Between 2023 and 2025, molecular analysis of preserved collagen proteins finally answered the question paleontologists had debated for a century. Who is Thylacoleo's closest living relative? Not the Tasmanian devil. Not the thylacine. Not any predator. It's the koala. The sleepy, eucalyptus-addicted, famously harmless koala. The animal that spends 22 hours a day unconscious and occasionally forgets that eucalyptus leaves are food when they're not attached to a branch. This thing? This pound-for-pound bite force champion? This thumb-killing, throat-shearing nightmare? Evolved from the same family tree. Let that sink in for a moment. Evolution didn't just make a predator here. It took a lineage of gentle, tree-dwelling herbivores, and through millions of years of increasing drought and vanishing forests and desperate competition for resources, forged them into the most specialized mammalian killing machine that ever walked the earth. From leaf eater to apex executioner, same genetic foundation, radically different outcomes. Thylacoleo carnifex vanished around 46,000 years ago. The climate was shifting, the woodlands were shrinking, and a new apex predator had arrived on the continent. One that carried fire and walked on two legs. But the memory may have survived. In rock art painted by generations who'd seen the real thing. In stories passed down through 40,000 years of oral tradition. Maybe even in the joke about drop bears that Australians still tell today. Next time you see a koala dozing in a eucalyptus tree, remember, somewhere in that family tree is the ghost of a cousin that killed with its thumbs. Thanks for watching, and until next time.